Hope y'all are having a great weekend. Welcome to another episode of Murders, Mysteries, and More. My name is Kaylee.
My name is Desi.
Be sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell next to the subscribe button to turn on post notifications. Before we get into this case, we always encourage those who have useful information to any unsolved case, please report it to your local police and sheriff department.
Every year, roughly 2% of the U.S. population move. We move for new jobs, for bigger and better opportunities. Some people move to be closer to family and others want to distance themselves. Moving is a big part of our culture. There are many things that can go wrong when we move, but more often than not, it works out for the better. However, for the Jamison family, that was not the case. It ended very badly.
October 8, 2009, the Jamison family packed their pickup truck and headed to buy some land. They wanted a more remote location. Their eyes were set on Oklahoma's Red Top Mountain. The couple is Bobby and Sherilyn. They have a daughter named Madisyn and a dog named Maisy. The family is from Oaklahoma, Oklahoma. The family was last seen by a man that lived in the southeastern Oklahoma mountains.
This man reported to authorities he only saw the Jamison family and no other bystanders. The family was looking to buy 40 acres around this area. They also wanted to bring their storage container home to this land. 8 days later, hunters found the Jamisons' truck abandoned in the area they were last. Investigators found Bobby's wallet, Sherilyn's purse, and other belongings in the car, including $32,000 under the driver's seat. Maisy, the dog, was left in the car by herself.
Former Latimer County Sheriff Israel Buchamp says, quote unquote, "I think they were forced to stop and got out of the truck to meet with someone they recognize, and I think they left willingly or by force," end quote. According to the GPS coordinates, it indicated they were possibly farther up a hill prior to their truck's location. Investigators used this as a tip and found footprints. October 17, 2009, multiple authorities and volunteers went searching for the family.
During this time, nothing was found. November 16th of 2013, more hunters were scouting out the woods when they found skeletal remains. The remains were of 2 adults and 1 child, and these remains were about 3 miles away from where the family went missing. The hunters found multiple bone fragments, teeth, torn clothing, and shoes. All of this was later on confirmed to be the Jamisons.
Dr. Joshua Latner, the Oklahoma State Medical Examiner, reported their cause of death as unknown. Latner stated there were no visible signs of trauma. However, he couldn't completely rule it out. Were also partial, which did not help with determining their cause of death. Latner could not rule out disease because of the condition of some animals nearby.
There are some very important missing items that were never found, which were a black briefcase and a 22mm pistol registered under Sherilyn's name. At the time of their disappearance, both Bobby and Sherilyn were unemployed due to disabilities. Bobby had been in a car wreck prior to the disappearance. Sherilyn's mother, Connie Cotaton, stated that she was unaware of any insurance payout from Jamison's car accident.
She also does not know where the $32,000 had come from. This could be from the insurance payout. Former Sheriff Buchamp states, during the investigation, it did not appear the family wanted to start over or they were in trouble. Investigators took the footage from the Jamisons' home from the day before they left. This footage was odd because the family would place their bags in the truck, then stop and stare for a few minutes.
Buchamp states, quote unquote, "Normally you can go through an investigation and one by one start to eliminate certain scenarios. We haven't been able to do that in this case. With this family, everything seems possible," end quote. The first theory is the family got lost in the woods and died from hypothermia.
According to a farmer's almanac, temperatures were also predicted to be around 40 degrees. There was also heavy rainfall. When we think of hypothermia, we usually think of the Arctic and in the negatives with heavy snowfall. Although it's less likely at 40 degrees, you can still die from hypothermia at 40 degrees, especially in heavy rainfall.
The second theory is that it was a murder-suicide. Investigators found a suspicious 11-page letter. The letter was found on the truck written by Sherilyn to Bobby. She talked about how too much of a homebody he was. Another letter written about death was found in their home. Beauchamp states, quote-unquote, "There certainly are a family obsessed with death," end quote.
Sherilyn's mother says that this is not the case, that the family were wonderful parents to their daughter Madisyn. She says she believes that someone murdered them, that there is no way the family did this to themselves. The next theory is that the family was murdered.
The theory is that Bobby's father, Bob Dean Jamison, 67 years old, killed the family. 6 months before they disappeared, it was noted that Bobby had a restraining order against his family. And this was because his father threatened to kill Bobby and his family. November 1st, 2008, in the restraining order, it says that his father tried to hit him with his vehicle.
Bobby talks about how his father acts above the law. His father is addicted to meth, has prostitutes, and is in a gang. At the end of the order, there's a note that says, quote unquote, "My entire family is severely scared for their lives. I am in fear at all times." On May 18, 2009, the judge dismissed the protective order.
Bobby was also in the process of suing his father. He had worked for free at the gas station his father owned and was promised half the sales. Unfortunately, Bobby did not receive the money he was promised. Bobby was also in the process of trying to get a settlement for the car accident he was in. Jack, Bob Dean's brother, did not believe Bob would actually kill his own family.
The next theory is that the family was murdered by a cult. Sherilyn's mother believes a religious cult killed the family. Sherilyn's mother said she was on this cult's hit list. Nikki Chenault, Sherilyn's friend, says she got an anonymous call. She says the caller talked about a white supremacy group that had a hit list of people they did not like.
She said the caller would give out names of missing people. 2 of the names were Sherilyn and Bobby Jamison. A 1993 article in Oklahoma states there was some cult in eastern Oklahoma. However, U.S. Marshal James Webb said he had not seen any activity in the past few years. Bobby's pastor does confess that Bobby was reading a satanic Bible.
Sherilyn's mother says that her daughter had been acting weird, that their home was haunted. Gary Brandon recalls Bobby asking for bullets to kill these spirits, which leads to the final theory: drugs. There were multiple reports of the family abusing drugs, and that this was a drug deal gone wrong.
To this day, it remains a great mystery what happened to the Jamison family. Whether it be from a disease, Bobby's crazy father, a cult, a murder-suicide, or even drugs, we do not know. Here are some questions. Why did the family want to leave their current home? We talked about this earlier. But I feel like multiple reasons why their family wanted to leave their current home. It could have been from the situation with Bobby and his father, as far as his father threatening to kill his family and, the judge dismissing the restraining order. They could have wanted to get far away from him just because they were in fear of their lives. They could have been running from somebody else besides Bobby's father that they were severely afraid of. Could have also finally caught up to them. Or they could have just decided they wanted a change of scenery. You never know. But I feel like it's very weird they wanted to just up and move from their home also.
Yeah, there's a lot of different reasons why people move. Some are being simple as a change of scenery, but also in a lot of cases, especially in cases when people later on come up missing, most often the reason why the people were leaving in the first place is they're trying to get someone. And it's pretty obvious, like with Bobby's father, how for him being addicted to drugs and all that stuff, and that alone can definitely tear apart a family, but also the fact that he tried to take a vehicle and hit Bobby with that, pretty much, even if he never was the one who truly ended up killing them, he should have still been investigated, because that, like, in itself is enough of a reason for someone to want to move their family away, because it's just not safe to stay there. The family thought that they should just take their truck and they just needed to get out as soon as possible. And this was like a little bit, like, not even too long after, just a few months after the judge had dismissed the restraining order, which is very unfortunate. Why did the family leave their dog in the car? They also left several belongings, such as like a cell phone and like a purse, all that stuff. I do find it a little bit odd that the family didn't take the dog. I feel like if the family willingly took the dog, and if they died from natural causes, the dog would have been with them. Because if you think about it, even if this family wanted to just be in a remote area, it'd be a really good idea to have a dog with them for survival skills. Also, I don't think someone would just up and just leave their dog in the car. Like, maybe they were trying to work something out with someone, so they thought, okay, we're gonna come back, and left their dog, but unfortunately it ended up going south. But it makes me think that they were probably forced, because if they were held at gunpoint or something, they would not think to bring their dog, and they probably could not negotiate to bring their dog with them.
Yeah, usually when you are taken hostage, you don't really have a choice of what you can and can't bring. You're just, whether it's being held at gunpoint or whatever, they just take you. They don't give you options.
Yeah, and they left all this stuff in the car, locked and everything. Most people normally are not going to just leave their cell phone in the car, because this was still 2009, and they're not going to just leave the purse in their car.
Somebody could rob them at any point.
Yeah.
Especially in Oklahoma. Where did this $32,000 of cash stashed in their car come from? One idea of where it came from was possibly the insurance payout from the car crash that Bobby Jamison was in. It could have came from that, or it could have possibly came from them dealing drugs, or a charitable gift from a cult if they were indeed involved in one.
There's a couple different theories where this $32,000 came from. It could have came from an insurance payout. That amount seems pretty normal for that time, for sure. And they could have cashed out the insurance payout because, like, if they were trying to escape from someone, $32,000. Nowadays, not so much, but back then, you could buy a bunch of land 10 years ago for that amount of money. You still can in a couple states. It's not as common nowadays, but even at that time, like, they could have had that because they were planning to buy land. Or, like you said, it could have been that they were involved in drugs or cults. A lot of people that do drugs and do drug transactions obviously are going to carry cash because they don't want it to be traceable or anything. So obviously, a lot of drug busts, you're going to see a lot of cash. So that could explain it as well. Did the family get lost in the woods and die of natural causes? If so, what natural causes did they die from? It's very less likely that they died from natural causes. Now, we can't completely rule it out, but I feel like if they were to actually have died from natural causes, they would have probably taken their cell phone with them, and they would have had their belongings with them. Their car would not have been stuck like that. They would have also had their dog probably with them. The only two natural causes that I could really think of that they could have possibly really died from is hypothermia, but that's still not as likely. Yes, you can still get it at 40 degrees Fahrenheit. However, a lot of people know about hypothermia and how to avoid it, and there's a lot of different ways to avoid it. They could have also lived remotely and just left all this stuff there because they didn't want the father to track it, and they could have been hunting some of these animals and eating them, and they could have got like a disease such as like tuberculosis from like a deer or something. But even then, there's so much awareness towards that, and a lot of people use common sense nowadays, so that's not as likely to be their cause of death.
Also, I feel like if it was truly them getting lost and dying from natural causes, their skeletal remains wouldn't be incomplete or scattered. They would be all complete together.
Yeah.
Sherilyn wrote hate letters about her husband being a hermit. Was this a murder-suicide? She did have a 22mm pistol registered under her. I feel like if it was a murder-suicide, we would find evidence of that, such as her 22mm pistol or whatever weapon she killed her family and herself with. Get frustrated with their loved ones, and they do irrational things sometimes, such as writing hate letters. Doesn't mean that they will go and murder their family and then murder themselves, but anything is possible, of course. We don't really have too much evidence as to what really was their cause of death because of their skeletal remains being scattered and incomplete, so we could be missing some key evidence here as to if it was a murder-suicide or not.
It could be a murder-suicide. We can't completely rule that out because unfortunately in America there is a big mental health crisis. If your mental health isn't in check, it can cause you to do some very irrational things, and the fact that they were both on like disability and everything, and that's not going to be a lot of money to live off of. However, I feel like with her letter, couples get mad at each other all the time, and the only thing she really talked about in that hate letter was calling him a hermit, which really people have said far worse things than that. Not to say that it's okay to say stuff like that, but I feel like if she really did truly want to kill him, she would have probably said a lot worse things. There would have probably been a bunch more signs. Also, just because she had a pistol does not automatically mean that, she straight up killed her husband and her family with that. There's plenty of responsible people with guns. But I do also think if this was truly a murder-suicide, we would have seen the pistol or whatever weapon she used around where the remains were found. And they never end up finding this 22mm pistol. And sure, a bystander could have came by later and took it and not reported these bodies, but again, it's less likely that someone actually did pick up this pistol. Why did Bobby's father, Bob Dean, threaten to kill the family? Could he have been involved? So I think one of the reasons why the father may have threatened to kill Bobby and his family is one, Bob Dean was addicted to meth, and meth can make you do horrendous things. He also was involved in a lot of gangs, so he was definitely not new to killing people. Obviously, if you're in a gang, you've probably killed a bunch of people before, and he also could have been after the family too, because Bobby was trying to sue Bob Dean because he had been working for the gas station for free and was supposed to get 50% of the sales and never received any of the money. And he was suing Bob Dean. That could be another reason why he was after the family, because he didn't want to lose out on this money from being sued and everything. So he thought, you know what, I'm above the law, so I'm going to straight up kill my own family. I do think it's very possible that he could have been involved. Another reason why I feel like he probably is involved is the restraining order. People don't have a restraining order for no reason. They always have a reason to have a restraining order. And clearly, Bob Dean had tried to hit his own son with a vehicle. And if you're willing to hit your own son with a vehicle, you're willing to pretty much do anything to kill them. I definitely do think that he potentially did kill the Jamisons.
Yeah, I feel like when you're on drugs, you do crazy things. You try to murder your family or try to murder friends or whatever. But you also think that you are above the law. Like, nobody could do anything to you, touch you, put you in prison, anything like that. So it's very possible. Why did the judge dismiss the restraining order Bobby had against his father? I feel like the judge dismissed the restraining order because maybe there wasn't enough sufficient evidence as far as, yes, he did try to run over his son and all this other stuff, but I feel like sometimes when it comes to restraining orders, you do need a little bit more evidence, or the fact that the judge might have known who Bobby's father was, might have been friends with him, or might have even been involved in a cult with him. Kind of just gave Bob Dean a little pass and all that stuff, swept it under the rug, etc. This could have caused the Jamisons to be murdered.
Also, another reason why they might have dismissed the restraining order, because Bobby was in the process of suing like his own father. There might have been some specific legalities that wouldn't have really worked in his favor. Could be why the judge dismissed it, or that there was not enough evidence for the restraining order, which is sad, because if the family did truly die from his own father, that just shows how messed up our justice system is. Why did a cult contact Sherilyn's friend Nikki Chanel? So a cult did contact Sherilyn's friend Nikki Chanel, like a caller that was talking about like this white supremacy cult and talking about these different names on the list. She would search these names and they would come up as missing people. And I think the reason why like someone from the cult contacted her is because they just basically wanted to kind of like rub it in her face or whatever, and kind of just like scare her and everything.
I feel like this cult definitely contacted her friend just because they wanted to definitely scare her and the Jamisons into thinking that this cult was after them, this cult was gonna find them, and this cult was gonna fucking murder them.
Yeah.
Just to get what they wanted out of them, which would be something that would benefit them for sure, whether it was money or sucking them into the cult and recruiting more members, or for their own personal gain in some way. Did a cult kill the family? It was noted that the father was reading satanic Bibles, their house was haunted, and there are cults in Oklahoma. We've discussed that, this is a theory among all the theories that a cult did go after the family. If the father was reading satanic Bibles, it is very likely that he was involved for sure. The Jamisons could be involved as well. People who are in cults typically do tend to be hermits and more withdrawn. And they do keep that side of their life a secret from a lot of people. You can't just go up and assume or guess that somebody's in the cult because they hide it so well most of the time. Anything is possible. Cults are very known to lash out at members who do try to go against their beliefs or try to leave. And sometimes that does end up in murder or some sort of horrible accident towards these people.
Yeah, I think it's very possible that a cult could have killed the family. Oklahoma is in kind of an area known as the Bible Belt, and the Bible Belt kind of areas have some very religious areas. And while some religious churches are fine and they're not forcing their beliefs upon other people or whatever, but there are some that take it to the very extremes. So in these Bible Belt areas, you are going to find a lot more cults than some other areas because of just the fact that so many people are preaching and doing religion there. Also, cults like to prey on people, especially people who are very vulnerable, especially like whether it be physically or mentally even. They love to prey on people, and whenever anybody has ever tried to leave the cult, it always ends very badly. Many times cults have killed many people, and it doesn't surprise me that they could have been killed by, even though it's in the 2000s, cults still do exist, and they really seriously fuck with people. Was this a drug deal gone wrong? Drugs are known to really fuck with people's minds and make them do irrational things. This could have been a drug deal gone wrong. We have seen it from time to time where people who are addicted, especially to hardcore drugs such as methamphetamine and then crack cocaine, like all that nasty stuff, it will literally destroy families, it will destroy lives. There have been several studies, and your mind goes into an altered state, and so you're not going to think rationally, and you're going to do some really dumb and stupid things. Because this could also explain all the cash that they had, the $32,000. When police do a drug bust, they find a bunch of cash along with the drugs, so that does kind of go hand in hand. But I do want to note that a reason why also could not be a drug deal is usually when it comes to drug deals, most of the time, the dealers just pretty much want their money, and they're not necessarily killing people because they just want to straight up kill people. It's just because they want money. Usually drug deals happen closer to your home. The fact that the cash was not even found near their bodies or whatever is just kind of weird. But it could have been a drug deal gone wrong, or it could have been the family was on drugs and they went into a mode of psychosis and they went crazy and they really did get lost in the woods.
What do we believe happened to the Jamisons? I feel like any theory in this case that we have gone over is very, very possible, because with the fact that we are missing remains, cause of death, and a bunch of other evidence, it makes it really hard to pinpoint exactly what it is, and all these theories are so believable. They could have died from hypothermia, they could have been killed by their father, they could have been killed by a cult, drugs could have been involved. I personally believe that, for me, Mr. Bob Dean, he's a very, very suspicious man. And with his record and all that stuff and what he tried to do to the Jamisons, I feel like anything is possible. People will do crazy things for drugs and money, and they will murder their own families, for sure. I feel like with the evidence of them leaving their dog, leaving their belongings, and leaving $32,000 of cash in their own vehicle, I definitely feel like they were taken against their will. And I don't think they got lost, especially being 3 miles away from their truck. I feel like they were taken at gunpoint by somebody, even possibly somebody from the cult. But I do believe that they were running from someone or something.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I am with you. I believe that Bob Dean is pretty guilty. Even if they were on drugs, his father had been on drugs anyways. But he made like all those threats, and he took a vehicle and tried to run his son over. You don't just take a vehicle rationally and try to hit someone unless you intend on killing them. So that alone pretty much proves that he was planning on killing them. Also, the family did seem still somewhat rational because they did have cash, like they were going to buy property, and they were actually scouting out in the area that they said they were going to scout out and look for 40 acres of land. It is pretty normal for people to want to go and buy some land and build property, and especially the fact that they had a restraining order and it was dismissed, and 6 months later whoop-de-doo, they're
Or
fucking
did.
dead. Like, to
He
me,
did.
clearly says, like, that Bob Dean is probably involved. And a cult still could be involved because, again, they are in the Bible Belt area, and in the Bible Belt area, there are a lot of cults still to this day, and it is crazy. But they still do exist. This other theory we have never even mentioned before that someone did mention on Reddit, it could be that possibly the landowner could have actually killed the family. They could have taken advantage of the family. Maybe there was an argument and with them, and they said that the landowner had a gun and maybe shot her and decided to shoot the rest of the family. And maybe the dog was left in the car because they thought that they were gonna come back. It wasn't gonna be too long. Some people do leave their dogs in a car for a little bit. It clearly was more than likely murder, but we will never know exactly what killed them. You always need to look out, even if you're in the middle of nowhere and you think nobody's going to come there and kill you. You'd be surprised. Everywhere there is crazy people.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Murders, Mysteries, and More. Remember, always keep your eyes open. You never know when someone's creeping.